The saying, "My people perish for lack of knowledge," needs to be decoded for its intrinsic meaning. Decoding its intrinsic meaning is crucial for the comprehension of the chaos of spiritual dilemma in the world responsible for the affliction of mankind. In mystical Kabbalistic traditions, this passage is taken from Hosea 4:6. Now, this passage is not to be interpreted as a simple lack of formal education. Rather, or instead, it is to be understood as a metaphysical catastrophe where humanity is spiritually severed from the divine energy flow due to neglect of innate experiential wisdom. In context, this knowledge spoken about in Hebrew Kabbalah is called Da'at. Da'at is not merely extrinsic data. Da'at is a mystical convergence and intimate union of wisdom, Chokmah, and understanding, Binah. Kabbalah distinguishes between intellectual knowledge and inner experiential Da'at, the mystical union of attributes of wisdom and understanding. Now, when people are lacking Da'at, the divine experiential wisdom, they see life through rose-tinted lenses, creating an illusion of separation from the Creator, leading to the collapse of the soul's energetic alignment called Shevrat Hakelim. Mystical texts highlights that ignoring the Torah, codes for spiritual instructions, causes the Shekinah, the divine feminine presence, the indwelling glory of God, to recede into exile. Now, the people mentioned in this verse are metaphysically understood as the beings that are subject to the lower dimensions of the soul, the generations cut off from the stream of divine light. The Kohen, the priest's exclusive function, is to channel divine light. Failure of the Kohen, the priest, to do so cuts him off from bridging between the physical and the spiritual realms. Furthermore, the ignorance and rejection of the inner teachings by the priest blocks him away from the spiritual influx, leaving the congregation in a state of fragility based on being fed altered, fear-based institutional script rather than connecting to divine source. Priestly immersion in the material, swept away by illusions, traded their reliance on the inner divine light source of life, resulting in prostitution and idolatry as mentioned by the book of Hosea. Their rejection of the divine light effectively disconnected them from the divine light source, being unable to function as priests to channel light to the rest of the world. The Torah is the cosmic blueprint and the living structural code of the universe. Forgetting the Torah is severing from the tree of life. The priest became ineffective and detached from the source of life, resulting to prescribing the letters of the law over its spirit. This realization anchors Christ Jesus, Yeshua's nullification of Levitical priesthood's inadequacy, characterized by doctrinal hindrance, in favor of standing in the light of spiritual sovereignty, overriding space and time constant as constraint to pure spiritual worship. John 4:21-24. In the Bible book of John, the allegorical narrative between Nicodemus, a Levitical priest, Pharisee, encounter of Jesus spotlight on the ineffectiveness and inadequacy of the Levitical officiating as invalid. The encounter bit by bit runs from John 3:5 to 12, and we will go by it step by step. In John 5, Jesus told Nicodemus that being born again requires water and spirit. Nicodemus was stunned, not comprehending the sacred secrets of these mysteries. Furthermore, in John 3:6, Nicodemus was still startled by the emphasis on the necessity of water and spirit for spiritual growth. In John 3:7, Jesus further told Nicodemus, seeing him startled, not to marvel at being told on the instructions of this translation in spirit. In John 3:8, Jesus further told Nicodemus that being born again is likened to the wind which blows where it wants. No one knows, but you hear the sound thereof. No one knows where it comes and where it goes. So such is he who is born again. Nicodemus was still stunned, and in John 3:9, he asked, Lord, how can these things be? And in reprimanding and response in John 10, Jesus says, you Rabbi of Israel, how come you do not know of these things? In confirmation of the validity of the royal priesthood of Melchizedek, Yeshua affirms the indispensability of gnosis through experiential wisdom by saying, most truly I say unto you, that which we know we speak, and that which we have seen we bear witness of. But you people do not receive the witness that we give. Furthermore, in John 3:12, Yeshua condenses the situation by saying, if I have told you earthly things and you do not believe, how will you believe when I tell you heavenly things? This further confirms Levitical priesthood's disconnect from the sacred secret and angelic knowledge. Due to the falling away of Levitical priesthood from divine protocol and cosmic blueprint of universal spiritual code, imminent provision for replacement through the word of the sworn oath established an eternal priesthood of which salvation through the archetype Yeshua, forerunner, initiate, high priest, according to the manner of Melchizedek, a priesthood forever. Hebrews 6:20 and 7:11. Hebrews 7:15 through 16 validates the royal priesthood of Melchizedek by saying, a priesthood in accordance not with law of commandment depending upon flesh, but depending upon power of indestructible life. Hebrews 7:18. There occurs a setting aside of preceding commandment on account of its weakness and ineffectiveness. This justifies the evolution of priesthood change. Hebrews 7:19. For the law made nothing perfect, but the bringing of a better hope did, granting access to God. This passage gives clarification on the reason for the need of this translation from Levitical to Melchizedekian priesthood. Hebrews 7:28 further buttresses prior points by saying, for the law appoints men, high priests, having weaknesses, but the word of the sworn oath that came after the law appoints a son who is perfected forever. The Melchizedek priesthood is the return to the original cosmic intention, unification of kingship and priesthood into one being. The end of the Levitical priesthood signals a transition from the restrictive era of law to the messianic era of grace and divine perception, the art. The individual under the order of Melchizedek no longer needs earthly external mediator, no longer has need for sacrifice no longer has the need for sacrificial shedding of blood, no longer has the need for paying of tithe. Instead, they become an embodiment of the divine and integrate and mediate the heavens into the earthly plane. In essence, you become your own alchemist, integrating heaven into the earth. Stay tuned till we meet again. I love you and thank you.